Now I'd like to welcome Democratic Representative from Washington, Adam Smith. He's a Democratic ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. I'm going to take a deep breath, Congressman, because there's a lot to talk about today, none of which is good news. First, I just want to get your thoughts about these horrible tragedies taking place in Minnesota early today.
Well, it's terrifying. I mean, it is a direct threat to our representative democracy, and we've seen an increase certainly in violent rhetoric, but also in acts of violence. And I think everyone needs to be more careful about the rhetoric they use and to condemn all of this. But, you know, and I'm sorry, President Trump, uses some of the worst rhetoric out there, and also pardoning all of the January 6th attackers of the U.S. Capitol just sends the wrong message on this. We need to universally condemn political violence, whether it's coming from the right or the left. And frankly, I have not seen that from the Trump administration. He mused openly about pardoning the people who had attempted to kidnap the governor of Michigan. That creates an atmosphere of impunity that I think doesn't help what is already a very volatile situation. But mostly, it's just a very terrifying thing, for anyone involved in public politics to think that, two elected state legislators could be targeted this way just because of the job that they are doing.
But that's specifically what I want to ask you about, because it was just 2 days ago at that press conference in Los Angeles, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem declared that federal troops are in California. They're in Los Angeles. I want to make sure I get it right. To liberate the state and city from its elected leaders. Does that not make you worried when we have people that senior in government are talking about liberating a city from duly elected lawmakers? And now look at the tragedy that's unfolded in Minnesota. Does that not make you worried, scared for your own personal safety?
It makes me really angry more than anything that people who are supposed to be upholding the U.S. Constitution and our representative democracy, which I am incredibly passionate about, would use that type of language against their federal elected officials. And one of your commentators was saying earlier, or your reporters was saying earlier, it's almost as if Donald Trump views the United States military as his own personal guard.
My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa and her husband, Mark, were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination. Our state lost a great leader, and I lost a dearest of friends. Speaker Hortman was someone who served the people of Minnesota with grace, compassion, humor, and a sense of service. She was a formidable public servant, a fixture and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place. She is irreplaceable, and we've been missed by so many. Minnesota's thoughts and prayers are with her family, her loved ones, her children, and her parents. My prayers also go out to State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette, who were each shot multiple times. The Hoffmans are out of surgery at this time and receiving care, and we are cautiously optimistic they will survive this assassination attempt. This was an act of targeted political violence. Peaceful discourse is the foundation of our democracy. We don't settle our differences with violence or at gunpoint. In the state of Minnesota, and as recently as last week, in the most closely divided state legislature in the country, we sat down, we worked things out, we debated, we shook hands and compromised, and we served the state of Minnesota together. We proved that it's possible, even in these politically charged times, to find compromise and adhere to the principles of democracy and civil discourse. We must all, Minnesota and across the country, stand against all forms of political violence. At this precipice moment we're on, this tragic act here in Minnesota should serve as a reminder to all of us. The democracy and the debates in the halls of Congress, in state houses, in school boards, is a way to settle our differences peacefully and move society to a better place. We're collaborating with all local, state, and federal agencies on a full investigation We're committed to keeping Minnesotans informed as the situation continues. I assure you that those responsible for this will be held accountable. And each and every one of us are committed to making sure that a tragedy like this never repeats itself.
The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of 57-year-old Minnesota man Vance Luther Bolter, a suspect in the assassination of a top state lawmaker. That is the chilling footage and photos that we've all seen today of him at her door. Melissa Hortman, a member of the Democratic Farmer Labor Party and a former Speaker of the State House, and her husband Mark, they were shot and killed early this morning. Bolter is also a suspect in an attack on another lawmaker, State Senator John Hoffman, and his wife Yvette. They are expected to survive multiple gunshot wounds. Officials released this photo of the suspect taken this morning in Minneapolis, saying they believe he is working to flee the Twin Cities area. Officials believe the attacks were politically motivated. They say he left behind a list of potential targets. According to an official who has seen the list, the targets are prominent pro-choice individuals in Minnesota, including many Democratic lawmakers who have been outspoken about pro-choice policy positions. They also found dozens of pieces of paper with the words "No Kings" scrawled on them in a car used by the suspect. What those words mean to the suspect, what connection they might have to thousands of protests today, is still unclear. If we learn more, we will certainly bring that all to you. But joining me now is Ken Martin. He is the chair of the Democratic National Committee. He's a proud son of Minnesota, and he is a friend of both the Hortman and Hoffman families. Ken, we are I'm so grateful for you to be here with us tonight, because this is so much going on around the country. But I know for you and for so many people from Minnesota, this is a very personal story, a personal night, a tragic night. And I just want to start by asking you to tell us a little bit more about Speaker Hortman and her husband, Mark. What should we know about them?
Well, first, let me just say, Jen, thanks for having me on. Look, like many Minnesotans, I woke up this morning actually in Kentucky to the news, just getting texts that there'd been a shooting in Minnesota, not knowing at the time that it involved many of my friends, including Melissa Hortman, who I've had the great pleasure of knowing for half of my life. I first met her when I was 27 years old. She was 30. This was in the year 2000. She was running for the State House for the very first time. She was a proud alum of Al Gore's Senate office, and I was working for Al Gore's campaign at the time, and we just became really fast friends during that year. And I will tell you, she lost that race. She went on to run again, and she lost again. And in 2003, I can't get this conversation out of my head, because we were down in Iowa campaigning for John Kerry together, and as we were coming back to Minneapolis, driving that 3-hour trip back, she asked me about what she thought, what I thought about her running again. And, you know, I told her something that Paul Wellstone said, that the future does not belong to the cynics or those who sit on the sidelines, but the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams and who are change makers. So Melissa was a huge change maker, just amazing. She did a lot for this state.
You're going to make me cry, which is okay. It's incredible to hear about her and her husband and who they are and who they were. And it's just a reminder of the human beings that are just trying to be public servants and are targeted simply for being public servants, which is just it's outrageous. It's horrific. I want to ask you too, and please keep sharing more about Melissa. We can keep talking about that as long as you would like. I think people love to hear it.
I want to say something more about Melissa before we get into how we got to this mess, because you know what? She was an amazing, amazing elected official, and she just persisted. She ran again in 2004 and won that race, and then really climbed the ranks within the State House. She was a fierce, fierce champion for working families in our state. And, you know, she obviously was one of the longest serving speakers of the House, but she also is one of the most consequential speakers of the House. You've heard a lot about the Minnesota Miracle. That she was the architect of that. That would not have happened without her vision, without her leadership, without her persistence in actually making sure that we pushed hard for an agenda that actually improved people's lives, that centered on working families in our state. As a result, we passed the largest child tax credit, free school lunches for children, paid family and medical medical leave, you know, the largest investments in our K-12 education system, early childhood education. You know, you can go down the list of things she did to actually center working families and children in the conversation. None of that would have happened without Melissa Hortman, and we all owe her a great debt of gratitude.
Yeah, no question about it. There's some incredible stories about her leadership and what she did in the role and her time in public service. In your statement today, which struck me because it was so personal and it was also powerful, and you said these heinous murders are a reflection of the extremism and political violence that have been fomented in our country. I know we're all asking. I mean, in Minnesota, I know, and across the country tonight, how something like this could happen in America. I said earlier, and I don't know how you feel about this, that I know people keep saying this is not who we are. And I think part of it is this is part of who we are. And we need to talk about how political violence on the rise is something that's threatening public officials across the country. But how have you been answering that question today to yourself, to the people who have called you and asked?
Well, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, it has become who we are, but it doesn't mean that is who we should be. Yeah. We're better than this. And at the end of the day, you know, we should solve our differences in this country, not through political violence, but at the ballot box, right? And, you know, I thought my governor said it best today when he said, you know, remarkably, just a week ago in Minnesota, they ended their legislative session through compromise. In one of the most closely divided state legislatures in the country, they came together, Republicans and Democrats. They resolved their differences through compromise, through finding common ground to actually get something done for Minnesotans. And, you know, it's just so tragic here right now in this day and age because we do see the extremism on the far right.
We even asked about Mr. Bolter's political affiliations, and David Carlson, once again, his roommate and best friend, known him since fourth grade, did say Bolter voted for Trump and that he was a strong supporter.
Don't listen to the spin. What happened today was an attack on many individual people, yes, but on Democratic politicians and anyone perceived to be broadly on the left in American politics. The person who undertook this horrific act is directly connected to Trump in that he is a supporter of Trump's ideology and, at least according to the neighbors, was a Trump voter. This man is connected to Trump's name because on a ballot he marked that little X. There's a direct connection there. This is a Trump voter, at least, again, according to that local news report. If something else comes up, who knows? But that's the story right now. There is reports confirming a connection. Doesn't mean Trump ordered this man to do it, of course not. But it does mean that in the context of Trumpian violence, this is what happens. This is what happens in the world Trump has tried to create. Other people on that list include Tim Walz, who was demonized by Trump, includes Ilhan Omar, one of my favorites. I'm a big fan of Ilhan, one of my top 4 favorite members of the U.S. Congress. But Ilhan Omar has been targeted by Trump before. Basically, he's told to leave the country. They chanted, "Send her back," you know, at rallies, at Trump rallies, dehumanizing her, saying she doesn't belong in the country. Is it any surprise that a Trumper had on a list of people to end permanently? No, doesn't surprise me at all. This is the product of Trumpian and Republican politics. The man was a Trump voter and connected to the MAGA ideology and worldview. At the very least, he shares that connection.